the trumpets means it's action. No time for relaxing. If I was packing, my man would still be here. I ain't gonna dwell it with men. I stay bent off the yeso, slinging exo from hood to hood throughout the metro. I does what I does. These streets got no love for the kid. The pigs wanna run up in the crib, so I slid to the lab. My path is one way and exact. It ain't no turning back. Forget being trapped by circumstances. I'm taking chances. The devil's running rampant, but with my angels watching, failure's not an option. I'm plotting, keeping quiet on the lust diet. You should try it. I'm sacrificing blue lightning, gates open and enlightened, fighting but winning. Crush linen, white A1s, stack funds, load guns. You feel me, son? Trying to survive today, just to see another.
Trying to survive in the ghetto. Devil's trying to take my life out in the ghetto. You can understand what it's like in the ghetto. Family, raise your hands if you know where I'm coming from. Trying to do my thing in the hood. Baby needed food, I had to do what I could. Fence on my back, but it's still all good. But I will survive.
We will survive. Peace, family. It's the Gifted Justice coming at you one more time with another lesson for today. Now that song right there is sponsored by Angels Inc. It's called Survive. It's Lord's Son, Giffy the God, Elo Kush, featuring T-Bell singing on the hook, 6th Street Studios. Now you can find this song on bandcamp.com under the album Book of Angels. Yes, go check them out if you get a chance. Angels Inc. ANGELZINC. Google them. They have an extensive catalog. Very positive music, you know. But, okay, let's get into today's lesson. Open up your ears. Get your pen and pad. Because we about to go in on some serious stuff right here, you know. Shout out to the Free Inhabitant. Peace to the God for, you know, allowing me to share his platform. Thank everybody for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And please, you know, if you're viewing this right now, you know, go on ahead and hit that like button. Smash that like button for us, you know, and thank you for your support. So let's get into it. Today we're going to be talking about surcharges and what they are, why they're here. Who pays for these things and what they become and how it's affecting the people and how we can also challenge these things. That's the main part. We have to challenge them. We have to, you know, put them on notice to let them know that, you know, we're hip to the game that they're playing and we're no longer going to stand for it. But we have to do this all as a unit, folks. Can't do it one person doing, okay, I'm challenging surcharges here. No, we have to do it as a mass unit. Everybody has to send this paperwork in. We got to get on top of this stuff because the fraud has been going on for too long. Okay, let me blow this up just a little bit. Okay. What is a surcharge? Surcharges are fines assessed by the New Jersey Surcharge Violation System. The NJSVS on an annual basis for drivers who have excessive points for traffic violations or who have been convicted in court of specific offenses such as driving while intoxicated. Surcharges are in addition to any court fines, penalties, laws requiring surcharge assessments and penalties for non-payment back to 1983. 1983 was the date that, you know, the Surcharge Act passed in New Jersey. Now, New Jersey is not the only state that does surcharge. There's only about 10 states that outlaw surcharges, but New Jersey is one of them. So just because I'm talking about New Jersey doesn't mean that it's not the same in your city or state, and you can, you know, file these same affidavits to challenge them in your state also. Surcharges help pay for the state bond debt, and a portion of the revenue collected helps fund treatment programs for alcoholism and alcohol dependency amongst drunk drivers. Okay, now let's break this paragraph down right here. Okay, surcharges are fines. Now, what is a fine? A fine is a penalty for wrongdoers. So let's go down a notch right here. Okay, we're going to break this down nice and slow. Nice and slow, and just so we can get the point across. All right. Let's get down here. Okay. A fine and penalty, right? Okay. Penalty. What's a penalty? A penalty is punishment imposed on a wrongdoer. It can be in the form of imprisonment or a fine. It can refer to a sum of money that is exacted as a punishment for either a wrong to the state or a civil wrong. Generally, penalty is used in context of crimes, but it can also be imposed for civil wrongs at times. Penalties can also refer to an extra charge against a party who violates a contractual provision. An extra charge, that's what a surcharge is. It says surcharges are fines and penalties on top of the tickets that you have already been charged with. So, okay, so if it's a penalty that can refer to an extra charge against a party who violates a contractual provision, then where is the contract? There is none. They are executing your estate, and they're becoming the beneficiaries without your permission. Penalties can also be the stipulated damages a party to a contract should pay in case of a breach. It is the sum of money the party agrees to pay or forfeit by way of punishment in case of breach of contract. Where's the contract? There is no contract, or there might be. Maybe that driver license is a contract, but if it is a contract, it's a adhesion contract because it doesn't say that it's a contract and it doesn't have two signatures on it. There's only your signature on it, and they don't reveal the terms and conditions of that contract. So that makes the contract null and void. So let's go back to the top. So now we've assessed what surcharges are. They're fines and penalties that they're just tacking on for what? For violations, or if you have been convicted in court for a specific offense, such as driving while intoxicated. Okay. But they put such as driving while intoxicated, but you see, if you give somebody an inch, they're going to take a mile. Maybe it started as penalties for driving while intoxicated, right? But since no one said anything about it and no one challenged these things and no one challenged the bill, now they're taking the extra mile, because not only are they charging surcharges for penalties for driving while intoxicated, they're adding on tickets such as reckless driving, failure to pay other fines, they give you surcharges, failure to obey a traffic signal, or just a whole bunch of other tickets now, right? And then on top of that, surcharges are not paid just one time. It's 3 years. So if you get a surcharge for $150, that $150 becomes $450. You know why? Because it's for 3 years straight. And then if you don't pay, they tax on interest. It's an interest-bearing account. Okay, let's keep going. Surcharges are fines assessed by the New Jersey Surcharge Violation System on an annual basis for drivers who have excessive points for traffic violations or have been convicted in court for special offenses such as driving while intoxicated. Okay, now let's go back to the word drivers. Now, we all know that a driver is a commercial term. These are commercial courts. Driving is a commercial term. A driver is someone who's getting paid for usage of public roads and highways, such as taxi drivers, cab drivers, bus drivers, truck drivers, all people that get paid for conducting commerce on public roads. So now they're putting you as a private citizen, handling your business as a private citizen and using the roads for leisure. They're making you a driver. So you got to be careful of these trick bag terms, because once they make you a driver and now you fall under UCC commercial code, and they can tax you for driving. And that's exactly what they're doing. Traffic. That's another word that is a commercial term. We're not trafficking anything. When you traffic something, that means you're using the road for commercial gain. Okay, so those are the few things that put us under their jurisdiction when we go challenge these things, but we don't challenge every element of the words that they're using. You see, you have to break things down slowly but surely. Okay. Laws requiring surcharge assessments and penalties for non-payment date back to 1983. That was when the Motor Vehicle Securitization Act for surcharges was passed. And now I had a conversation with a lady with an agent at the MVC, that's the Motor Vehicle Commission, and she said that they were even against it, the workers there. But nobody challenged the bill when they put it up for legislation. That's why it's important a lot of times to, vote locally, or just check out and see what's going on with these bills that they're trying to pass locally, or introduce your own bill locally and get a legislator to support it and get it try to pass through, because what they're doing is they're controlling our life without our say so. You see, and that's how this bill was passed. It's 1983, and it's been haunting the free inhabitants of the state of each state forever. Now, surcharges help pay for the state bond debt, and a portion of the revenue collected helps to fund treatment programs for alcoholism, alcohol dependency amongst drunk drivers. Okay, so now, if this is your money that they're taking, right, you don't have any say-so about where that money goes and what programs it goes to treat, to help, or anything. You see, they're taking they're executors of your estate, and they're leaving the liability on you. You see, surcharges help pay for the state bond debt. That's deep, because we're going to go down to what is a bond. They help pay for the state bond debts. Okay. What is a bond? A bond or obligation is a written form or deed with at least one penalty clause and one defeasing its condition clause, whereby the obligor, that's the person bound, binds himself or heirs or executors and administers to pay a certain sum of money, a penal sum, or perform some covenant for an obligee. So in layman's terms, a bond is a promissory. You see, so you could buy a bond beforehand, right? So say if a bond is $5,000, you buy the bond from the state. The state are the ones that sell private citizens these bonds. You buy the bond for $5,000. Now they're promising you to pay you $10,000 in 10 years. So if you buy it for $5,000, each year you will get a check with interest on it until your $10,000 are paid up. Now, why is that important? It's important because this is how the surcharges are funding these bonds. As you've seen what it said, surcharges are used to pay the state bond debt. Now, what kind of bonds are they? A penal bond, also known as a bail bond, a surety bond, is where the obligor as the surety promises to pay the obligee a financial penalty, penal sum, for any non-performance, error, omission, dishonesty by the principal as the thing, legal person under the custody of the obligor. So they're putting money on your head. And if you fail to perform in any satisfactory condition of the contract that you sign, then you breach the contract and they will lock you back up. So this is a form. These bonds are a form of slavery, where you get the word bondage. When you're in bondage, you are what? Not free to move, not free to leave when you're in bondage. So that's what these bonds are. And we're going to go down a little bit further. Government bond. That's what they're selling to these people, that is backed by the surcharges now. It's also known as a sovereign bond, and municipal bond is where the obligor, the government, promises to pay the obligee a rate of periodic payments and as interest and the redemption of the principal loan against some underlying asset or stock or debt, which is what the surcharges is. Their debt in stock and you are the asset. Commercial bond, also known as commercial papers, where the obligor promises to pay the obligee according to some terms on the repayment of money against some underlying asset, such as a contract, covenant, or factor. Insurance bond, also known as an investment bond, is where the obligor, the insurer, promises to pay the obligee the sum of money upon the event of loss or fixed time in exchange for regular payments called premiums against the principal, life insured, in custody of the obligor. See, now these are all bonds that these surcharges are backed by. So now what that does is it puts us on the hook, because now these agents or these people, they buy these bonds, right? So now the bonds are backed by surcharges. So what does that do? That gives the policy enforcers, which are, i.e., both police, it gives them the incentive. Well, it gives the courts the incentive to send the policy enforcers, which are police, out on the hunt to collect revenue. That's why they're on the hunt for us, and that's why we get pulled over for frivolous things. That's why they never want to dismiss tickets unless you have a good cause or you could put up a good fight. And that's why with the free inhabitants, last video, he has a nice lawsuit for these police that pull you over for no reason, where half of them are violating your 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments. Okay, now we're going to go back to what surcharges are and where it derived from. The surcharge is a chancery practice when a bill is filed in an open account stated. Liberty is sometimes given to the plaintiff to surcharge and falsify such account. See, now, chancery court is an old English court, right, in which monarch secretaries or the chancellor began hearing lawsuits during the 14th century. That's exactly what they're doing when they bring us to court. They're suing us. They're suing us, and without any contract. That's the crazy thing. So now this is where they get these chancery courts. This is where they get these traffic courts from. The decisions rendered there were based on the conscience and fairness rather than the strict common law forms of action. In the United States, courts like the old Chancery Court have been called courts of chancery or courts of equity. That's what these municipal courts are. They're courts of equity. They do not deal with common law. They deal with statutes, codes, and regulations. They do not deal with common law, constitutional law. It's courts of equity. Now, hold up. But there is protection because these people have sworn oaths to hold the Constitution, to uphold the Constitution. Okay. Article 3, Section 2, Clause 1 says that the judicial power shall extend in all cases in law and equity. That's one of your protections right there. You see, you bring up that Article 3, Section 2, Clause 1, that equity court is not constitutional at all. You see, because the thing with equity court is they don't deal with laws. They deal with they deal with the feelings of the judge, i.e. magistrate. He could have woke up on the wrong side of the bed. His wife could have cheated on him yesterday. You see what I'm saying? And he's in a bad mood. Or he could be prejudiced against women or prejudiced against Mexicans. And you're not going to get a fair shake. That's not righteous in the eyes of the law. And that's why Article 3, Section 2, Clause 1 states judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity. All states eventually allowed for judicial exercise of equity, and many states created special courts of equity which maintain procedures distinct from those of courts of law. That's another thing. A lot of states don't even have municipal courts. They set up this private practice called traffic court, because that way they don't have to deal with the Constitution. They don't have to, it's dealing with straight equity, it's dealing with straight commerce, and you really have no type of win. All right, let's go back up here. Now, in these courts of equity, right, and these chancery courts, which are municipal courts, which are traffic courts, I'm going to go right here. It says that upon liberty to the plaintiff, surcharge and falsify, says he, the onus probandi is always on the party having that liberty. For the court takes it as a stated account and establishes it. But if any of the parties can show omission, for the credit ought to be, that is, a surcharge or anything is inserted that a wrong charge, he is at liberty to show it, and that is falsification. But that must be proof, but that must be by proof on his side. And that makes a great difference between the general cases of an open account and where only leave to surcharge is falsified for such being made out. Okay, now, basically, that is saying that Latin word, onus probandi, that means burden of proof. Now, in regular court, the burden of proof is not on you. The burden of proof is on the person bringing the charges. Now, in these courts of equity, the onus probandi is on the accused. So you have to show this proof that these charges and these false accounts that they're opening up. You see, they keep using the words account. Who is authorizing these people to open up accounts in our name? Or in our artificial name? Or in our trust? That we're supposed to be the beneficiaries. But they're doing the hocus pocus and switching roles with us. You see what I'm saying? So you have to understand that you have a right to challenge this fake credit account that has been produced in your name. But none of us do. We don't challenge it. We don't challenge the debt. We don't challenge the account. We have to go straight to the horse's mouth. They give you an out. There's always an out in law. You just have to take it. We have to stop being lazy. We have to stop laying down for these people and just letting them do whatever we want. And that's why we have these affidavits that we created, challenging debt, challenging the surcharge, challenging these accounts. You know, it's a process. That's what I'm trying to show you right here. Now we're going to go down a little bit further because this is getting serious. Okay, we went over the bonds. We went over what type of equity courts we're in. We went over what the surcharges are. Now we're going to get to the nitty gritty of the whole surcharge scam. Let's see where we at. Bear with me for a second, peoples. I'm going to go down, then I'm going to come back up. Okay, here we go. The motor, I'm going to stay right here. The motor vehicle surcharge monies securitize the state's covenant to repay certain bonds and refunding bonds the state and the New Jersey Economic Development Authority have issued. So they just straight telling you straight out the horse's mouth what these things are doing. They're paying for bonds that people have bought beforehand. So they're placing the debt of the state on your back because they're straight letting you know that they're using the motor vehicle surcharge money to pay for these bonds. Excuse me, I had to take a sip of water. Now, let's keep reading on. The delinquent surcharge amounts collected during this amnesty period will be allocated to meet the costs needed to retire those security bonds and refunding bonds. If the amount collected during this amnesty program exceeds the amount required to be paid under the Motor Vehicles Surcharge Securitization Act, PL 2004. That's the big act right there. The Motor Vehicle Surcharge Securitization Act. Now, that's the same act that was passed in 1983, but in 2004, they amended it. Now, the excess funds are to be transferred to the general fund made available for general state purposes. So they're just laundering this money all around the state, using it for this and that, without your permission, without your know-how, and we're doing nothing about it. Let me go up real quick before I go back and finish that session up right there. Now, they're saying these funds. Now, what is a fund? A fund is, in public sector accounting, the primary catch-all fund of a government or government agency or nonprofit entity such as a university. It is similar to a firm's general ledger account and records and all assets and liabilities of the entity that are not assigned to special purpose fund. It provides the resources necessary to sustain the day-to-day activities and thus pays for all administrative operating expenses. When governments or administrators talk about balancing the budget, they typically mean balancing the budget for their general fund. So all this balancing the budget talk, the government is not balancing anything. You're balancing the budget for the government. Ain't that something? And you get no credit for it. You know, they still, and these are some of the funds, programs that this stuff is funding. Okay. You have the Motor Vehicle Surcharge Securitization Act. You have the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, the NGED. That's a private business that these funds. You have the Motor Vehicle Commission bonds, which have been proven to be unconstitutional. You have surcharge securitization bonds, refunding bonds, market transition facility bonds. The bonds may be sold at a public or private sale for prices determined by the authority. You have the general fund. That's the fund that the extras go into and the state can use it for whatever they choose. You have the market transition facility revenue fund. And all these funds are non-lapsing. That means that each year they don't have to start them over or recalculate. No, they just keep going over and over again. You have the Alcohol Treatment Programs Fund. You have the Unsafe Driving Surcharges Fund. You have the Market Transition Facility Revenue Fund. You have the New Jersey Automobile Insurance Guaranteed Fund. These are all these funds that your surcharges are paying for without your permission. Okay, now let me go back down and read on. So we already understand that the motor vehicle surcharge money securitized the state's covenant to repay certain bonds and refunding bonds for the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. All right, now, in addition to any other remedy provided by law, the commission is authorized to utilize the provision of soil set off individual liability program established pursuant to collect any charges levied under this section that and collectible by a commission is unpaid on or after the effective date of this act. Okay, now what that's saying is that if you don't pay your surcharge on time, that this soil program is here to set off the liability that they place you under. Now, the certificate shall reference the statute under which the indebtedness arises. Thereupon, the clerk to whom such certificate shall have been issued shall immediately enter. Now they're just adjudicating without due process. You see? Now it says the clerk will issue a certificate. The record of docketed judgments, they will name the such person as the debtor and the state as the creditor. Wow. They're just making you the debtor and the state is the creditor. If you're a debtor, if the state is the creditor, what has the state given you? What have you taken from the state? What have you damaged the state? Now, this is where it gets even deeper. Okay, I'm going to bring it down here. The docketing of such entries shall have the same force and effect as a civil judgment docketed in superior court. Bam. How in the world is these documents going to have the same force and effect as a civil judgment? When you have a civil case in superior court, it's a breach of contract that has occurred. A breach of contract. There is no contract. That's why we have to challenge these people. You know, we have these affidavits, the surcharge and error affidavit. We have even the surcharge debt affidavit, the motor vehicle default affidavit. Once they don't answer, we have the affidavit surcharge dispute letter. So, you know, people have thousands of dollars in these surcharges that add up and collect, and they suspend your license and they want you to pay and this and that. No, we refuse to do that anymore, and we need everybody to join in if you want this stuff defeated. We have to stop letting these people walk over us. We have to stop it. You know? Now I broke down a couple of I broke down a couple of things, let you know what the surcharges were, let you know what the bonds were, let you know how they were funding these bonds, you know, just so you can get a better understanding or overstanding of why they pull you over and why they ticket us and why they do these things. But there's always an out. Like it says here at the Ancient Act of 2004. The provisions of this act shall be severable, and if any of these provisions hereof shall be held to be unconstitutional or otherwise invalid, such decisions shall not affect the validity of any other of these remaining provisions of the act. So now they're telling you, they're giving themselves an out, saying that if one of these things that they're doing is held unconstitutional, then this act can be, you know, terminated or severed, you know, broke down and made right. So they're giving us the out right here. So now it's up to us to challenge these people and to prove these things to be unconstitutional. All right. Let me go. One more thing I was trying to show you before I close out, and then I will do part 2, because I don't want to make it too long. I want to show you some of the things that these bonds pay for. It's up top. Just so you know. Okay. Why are bonds used? You see me right here? All right. The state has traditionally used bonds to finance major capital outlay projects such as what? Roads. So if we're funding the roads, then there are roads, right? It's a public road. So how come they're charging us for turnpike fees, charging us tickets? We already paid. We paid in advance. They're just doubling back on us. Educational facilities, but you still have to pay taxes to your town or your municipality for schools. You still have to pay to go to college, right? But these bonds are being used to pay for that, which we already pay for the bonds that we see. Prisons. That's the deep, dark secret right there. We're paying for our own enslavement. That's what it's breaking down to, fellas and ladies, gentlewomen and gentlemen. The state has traditionally used these bonds to finance major capital outlay projects such as roads, educational facilities, and prisons. When are we going to wake up and stop being slaves? When? So I'm going to wrap this up for today. This is the smashing the surcharge, the false surcharge tax debt / bill. If anybody, I hope you had your pens and pads out, to help you, research these things that I'm talking about also. If you're not in New Jersey, please look up the same stuff in your state. It's the same. A surcharge is a surcharge is a surcharge. These equity courts are equity courts are equity courts. If anybody, needs help putting together an affidavit or needs a template of the affidavits we already have, don't be afraid to, hit us up. The email will be in the description box. Any questions, comment down below. Once again, thank Free Inhabitant for sharing the platform with me. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If anybody needs to hear that song or wants to hear more from Angels Inc., go to bandcamp.com/Angels, ANGELZINC, or you could just Google Angels Inc., and a lot of those things will get up. So and remember, part 2 is coming soon. I'm gonna wrap it up. Part 2, I'm gonna get a little bit more in depth with just with the correspondence that I've been going back and forth with the congresswoman talking about motor vehicle and these surcharges and stuff like that. I'm show more evidence and show more proof. I'm gonna show the apology for slavery, which mentions New Jersey's apologies for slavery, which is a legislative bill, and it also mentions the traffic violations and stuff like that. So we're armed and ready. We're trying to get up in court because we're ready to put this lawsuit together to start suing motor vehicle. So once again, Happy New Year. If I don't get back to you before the New Year, I don't celebrate holidays, but Merry Christmas to those who do. Happy Hanukkah to those who do. Happy Kwanzaa to those who do. With that being said, I'd like to say peace. Thank you for watching, and please come back again. And remember, a coward dies 1,000 deaths, but a soldier but once. But he don't die because he becomes a martyr. All right, we out.